Greetings all, this is Dickie Adams with PocketNow.com, and today we're taking a closer look of the hardware on the Motorola Photon 4G for Sprint. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The fit and finish on the Motorola Photon 4G is very, very solid. This device feels really good in the hand. The rounded corners are really nice. Feels a little weighty. It doesn't feel like it's too lightweight, so it doesn't feel like you're going to throw it someplace. Overall, a great device in the hand. The only complaints that I've run into are the finish up here on this kind of chromed edge, and right here along this edge here as well have taken some abuse due to other objects in my pocket and have scratched very easily. The screen has stayed very resilient, considering that it's using Gorilla Glass, even with this little kind of lifted edge here on the sides. But just some scraping here, so just know that if you put it in your, if you pocket your device without it being in a case in your front pants pocket or otherwise where there might be keys or a knife or other, other sharp objects, just expect that the fit and finish around the outside may get damaged a little bit. The dual-core NVIDIA Tegra 2 processor, 1 GHz, is very, very snappy on this device. I found it to be works admirably, and for the additional processing power, you get a lot of functionality out of this. Now, on the home screens, on the other hand, and I know that this was kind of mentioned in the unboxing review that it seems slow, I find that it mostly has to do with the number of widgets on the screen, and after we get through the software review, I'll take some of these off and we'll comment on the full review how fast the home screen was in comparison. We'll talk more about it in the software review as well. As far as buttons and levers and otherwise on the Motorola Photon 4G, you've got the 4 capacitive buttons on the front. They're very responsive. I had no problems moving back and forth between areas or the speed therein. There's a little bit of animation that happens there, but really it works very, very quickly. On the top is our power button, which I had no problems with using or having it cause any issues for me. On the side is the volume button, and they're textured a little bit, as I mentioned in the unboxing review, which is really nice when you're trying to find the buttons. The action on these rockers is very smooth and has a nice click. The camera button is that same textured feel, but it is only a single actuation, meaning that you press it down and the camera takes the picture. There is no half pressed for focus, and we'll come back to that in just a minute and talk about the reason why that's important. Outside of buttons, but more ports, you have the USB and the HDMI ports on either side here, and if you've got other Motorola accessories such as the car dock, as long as you have the adapter that fits this particular device because of the rounded corners, it will work fine in that device. I used this particular device on the Motorola, or the Droid 3 from Verizon. I just used the adapter for it, the car adapter that I had, even though that this came with a car adapter as well. The review unit did. Just wanted to make sure that it was, the functionality would be the same there. On the back, the kickstand is nice and solid. It has a little bit of a issue on this side right here, where it can get tipped over pretty easily if you hit it in the wrong spot. But as far as setting it up to act as an alarm clock, it works pretty well. And for watching movies, it works pretty well as far as I've been able to find. This stays magnetically closed, so it doesn't flop open when you're putting it in your pocket, which is fantastic. The camera on the Motorola Photon 4G is 8 megapixels. It does 720p recording, and the device itself can do 1080p playback. It's got dual flash. Unfortunately, and we kind of talked about this camera button over here, this thing takes a long time to focus. The Motorola Photon 4G is like a lot of its Motorola siblings recently, that you press the button to take the shot, it does a focus, and then finally takes a shot, and it can take just enough time that you either lose the shot or the shot still comes out blurry, which is a little disappointing. Video is a little better, and we'll have samples of both of those in our final review. One thing to note on this comparison to the Droid 3, it does not suffer from the kind of bluish tint that the CMOS sensor or the camera sensor in the Droid 3 had suffered from, if you read our full review on that. Front-facing camera is just a standard webcam. It's great for items such as Skype or otherwise, which is nice. Now, this is Motorola's first 4G phone for Sprint. It is also a world device. It does have a SIM card in it. Unfortunately, since it's locked for domestic use, only for outside the United States does this work. We weren't really able to test that functionality very well. But it is a world device, let's just say that. It has 16 gigs of onboard memory. It has a slot for additional memory using micro SD up to 32 gigs, but it doesn't come with one included, which was a little bit of a disappointment there, but what can you say? Battery life on the Motorola 4G is fantastic. The QHD display with the pin tile technology seems to just sip the battery very, very quietly, unless you have the 4G service turned on, and then it seems to chew through it pretty quickly. Overall, I found with phone calls and average daily use, I'm getting easily a day or day and a half of power out of this compared to my Epic 4G, which can barely survive a day. Of course, the 1700 milliamp hour battery does help with that. As far as speeds go on this device, as you can see here, when we get into the actual 4G area, I get 12 and 1.6 up, 10 and 1.6 up. Good speeds. When it switches over to 3G, the speeds are as one would expect for a 3G on the Sprint network. And again, with the 4G service, it's about the same as I found with every other 4G device on Sprint's network. Speeds in the high range if you're close to a tower. If you move further and further away, you either lose the speeds completely, or even if it's on the map, sometimes it won't give you a signal, such as nearby to my house. It shows that we have 4G service here, but unless you're standing in the middle of the street 2 blocks away, you can't actually get signal that can stay and actually transmit data. Compared to its sibling on the Verizon network, the Motorola Photon 4G is slightly longer than the Droid 3 and a little bit wider. It's just a fraction, just a hair thinner than the Droid 3. It is noticeably thinner to the Epic 4G on Sprint. Here. Weight-wise, it's a little lighter than the Droid 3, a little heavier than the Nexus S. Feels good in the hand, as we mentioned in the beginning, so the weight really isn't too much of a factor at all. I do like the 4.3-inch QHD display, and my only complaint with it is because of pin tile technology. When you start zooming in on when you start looking very close rather on small text, such as we see here, and you start scrolling up and down quickly, you get a lot of ghosting. And up here in the battery media area, solid colors, you can see the pixelation very clearly. Additionally, the blacks aren't really as black as they could be, and that does have a tendency to change the color when you're looking at images on this phone. That said, the viewing angles on this device are fantastic. It's easily seen from all angles, and in the sunlight, it performs just like the Droid 3, easily seen in bright sunlight, which cannot be said for most of the AMOLED screens that are out there today. That wraps up our closer look of the hardware on the Motorola Photon 4G for Sprint. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. If you have a question you would like to specifically answer about the software, which is the video review that'll be coming up next, leave us a comment below and we'll try to address that question very specifically in the next review. Thanks for watching.